And there's nothing better than having a confident man who likes what he's wearing. Men want to look good. They may say they don't want to look good. Men want to look good. In the mid 90s, and I can get to that if you're interested, when my grandparents sold it in 77, we bought it back, and then we relaunched it in the 90s.
Hi, Laurie. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon. How you doing?
Good. I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You've been an inspiration. We met many years ago, and I was quite impressed with everything that you've accomplished. So I thought it would be pretty cool to, as you know, the theme is inspiration, and to kind of share your story.
It's been a while, so it's good to sit here and catch up too. So I'm
Yes.
Laurie Haspel. I'm from Louisiana. I run two different family businesses here in Baton Rouge. I'm doing great. I stay awfully busy. I travel all the time, and it's good just to sit down for 5 minutes and talk to you. I mean, I'm sure it's more than 5 minutes, so certainly, but just to sit for a minute and catch up, and sometimes to be at home is good.
Awesome. I forgot the Louisiana accent. I totally forgot.
It's funny that you can hear it. Some people hear it, some people don't. And when they hear me speak, they're like, Louisiana or Texas? Louisiana.
No, Louisiana. Texas is a little different, but listen, I know last time we met at a film festival, and that's how we got to know each other. Why don't you go ahead and give it a little background of, I guess, your businesses, your heritage, how you got to be where you are, and there's a lot of great stuff you've done. I mean, some of the businesses you're involved with are American culture, so I'd love for you to jump into that.
Gosh, where to begin? Um, so I grew up here in Baton Rouge. I moved away for about 8 years, lived in Atlanta, but moved back here in 1993. And, as you said, I do run two family businesses, one that started on my father's side of the family and one on my mother's side of the family. And so obviously I'm quite involved. I've been, president or running both of these companies for um, 23 years now. I've
Wow,
been back in Louisiana for 32. So it's been a while. Um,
amazing.
so, but no, but lots of fun. And look, I get to do what I do because I've got great teams on both the Haspel side, which is my mother's side, and the clothing business, the men's clothing business, and on my dad's side, which is wholesale sporting goods side. I've got just great teams on both sides that really make the world go round, and I get to do what I do and travel, and hopefully I put them in a position to make good decisions and to, grow our businesses. And then, of course, beyond that, I'm involved with so many other things that we can talk about later. I've, gotten involved a little bit on Broadway, and I've now become a winemaker. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that's a lot of fun. I love talking about that.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, there's a thing about, the series about executives and the inspiration behind how you are doing what you're doing. I mean, it's not easy to do what you're talking about. So let's just take it a step at a time. Let's go into the clothing because I know that you gave me a book about that a while ago,
Oh, I
and I
did.
thought it was, yeah, yeah, it was pretty cool. So why don't you get into the clothing and how that started? And then where you went, and then we'll get into the other stuff.
Sure. So, Haspel, which is Haspel, Haspel, which is my mother's maiden name and the family side of her that business, originated in New Orleans in 1909.
Wow.
So it's been a minute since that started, but my great grandfather started that business, and he was really the one who I don't really want to say invented, but popularized the seersucker suit. He didn't
Seriously.
invent seersucker, the fabric, but he popularized it, and he took this cotton, breathable fabric and made it into a suit. And that's really how seersucker was born. Because for many, many years, and the factory was in New Orleans all those years ago,
Wow.
seersucker was used for uniforms and for laborers' overalls and for factory clothing. And, this is in the days before air conditioning. And here we are in Louisiana in those hot, humid days. And a well-dressed man always wore a flannel suit, of course, but you can't do that here in the South. And truthfully, anywhere. I mean, hot is hot. New York, it gets hot in the summer. And if I'm sure in the days before air conditioning was hot up there too. But he thought seersucker would make a great gentleman's suit, became popular in the Ivy Leagues. And it really took off, from there. My grandfather was really one of the first ones to use, and today there's so much athleisure and different fibers, being woven together for performance fabrics. So he was really one of the very first to do that.
Mm.
Went to DuPont all those years ago when they came up with Dacron, for washability and wash and wear type fabric. But seersucker, that we use is still cotton. Right now we do all of our own seersucker. We make it all at a mill in Italy. And
Oh,
right
wow.
now, what we did, we have come up with our own formula, if we will. It's 97% cotton and 3% elastane for stretch, because
Wow.
men like to stretch, have a little more comfort in their clothing.
Yeah.
And so we have come up with that we started several years ago. So it's a proprietary seersucker, if you will, but we do it in, gosh, we make, I think, 14 colors right now,
Wow.
in suit separates. We sell everything in suit separates, but we also make them in tuxedos, some fabulous
Oh, wow.
tuxedos. But the suits are all in suit separates because that fits more of the lifestyle of, the man today, which it is all still men's. We've talked for so long about doing women's, and we've dabbled into it a little bit here and there, but the business is men's. I've been dressing men for many, many years, as my great grandfather did, celebrities and presidents, and we do red carpet and product placement, and just for the everyday guy just wanting to look good. And so styling men is really one of my favorite parts of what I do. It's so much fun um, to encourage men to really dress as they want to and to have it fit into their own lifestyle, and not, you're not trying to be a Haspel man and wearing Haspel clothing. You're Stephen, you are whoever you are, in whatever makes you feel comfortable. Because I've learned, not just with women, but with men, is that men want to look good. They may say they don't want to look good. Men want to look good. They want to look good for themselves. They want to look good for their friends, and they want to look good for women or men, whichever, but they want to look good. And there's nothing better than having a confident man who likes what he's wearing. Because, and I know men can attest to this, if you don't like your outfit for the day, because women are the same, trust me, it bothers me too. If it's not something you feel good in, you're just going to have a really pissy day. You're just going to have a really bad day, because these ladies have worn these dresses or outfits, and if you're not confident and comfortable in your outfit, it really does wear on you. And I think men are really the exact same. So that's a lot of what we try to do at Haspel, is to dress you for the occasions that you're going to. But even if I love something on you and you don't love it, it's not going to be good. So you have to love what you're wearing. And so that's been a lot of fun. And we've taken what used to be just a dressed up, two-piece suit, a nested pant and jacket for men. And we've sold them now for years as separates, because you'll get twice as much wear out of them, of course, but you can style them so differently. And yes, you can wear a suit, but to have these purposeful and colorful pieces to mix and match in so many different styles, whether it's in shorts or pants or, a suit, or blue jeans and a good looking sports shirt and a jacket, just makes it a lot more fun. And seersucker has gone from now just in from our suit separates, but also into our sportswear. And the sportswear has become a really large part of what we do, from short sleeve and long sleeve sports shirts to board shorts, as well as swim trunks. And now we've got these luscious seersucker robes and pajamas and just all sorts of things really to have fun with. But even if you're just buying an accessory, whether it's a tie or just a leather piece, everything has got a little outline or a trim of seersucker so you can remember that you're wearing Haspel.
Oh wow. So that's kind of like a almost like a trademark, like you kind of see the connection between the different lines.
You do. And so again, I'm going to talk about seersucker all the time because look, that's what put our company, that's what put Haspel on the map all those years ago. And that's what we're known for. That's what we hang our hat on. And that's what people come to us for. But over the years, we obviously developed, quite a large line that's beyond seersucker. We still sell poplin. We still sell linen. We tend to go to fabrics that can be worn in most climates 12 months out of the year. So
Okay.
it's important for us to be able to dress men where you can layer. And again, in most of the country, where we do sell pretty much all over the country. It's not just in the South, as a lot of people think. It's all over the country. I mean, you look at California all the way to New York, and we sell a lot of clothing, coast to coast. But
Mm.
it's important that in most climates, there's something here that you can buy from Haspel. And what's fun thing that we've done is we've taken what a lot of people when they think of seersucker, what do they, I'm going to ask you, I get to ask you one question. What do you think of when you think of seersucker?
1920s, 30s, elegant men's suit, walking on black and white documentary style stuff. Old school fashion. That's what comes to my mind.
Okay, and there's not a right or wrong answer, of course, but a lot of people think, that seersucker is just a blue and white striped fabric, and that's what they have in their heads. And seersucker is actually a process, something you do to a cotton, or it could be wool,
Mm.
that you do to a cotton fabric. And in our case now, we do cotton and we do some stretch in it. And we have, I think, 10 to 12 colors of the stripes of what you think of. But now we also do tonals. So we have this series of beautiful, from, a navy, we call it Commander's Navy, navy on navy, black on black, charcoal gray, which we call voodoo gray, all these New Orleans influence names, white on white, at least we used to. That kind of pops in and out of the collection, and a pretty, an olive green fabric as well. So we have colors that can be worn 12 months out of the year. So you're not just in a blue and white stripe or red and white or purple and white stripe.
Interesting.
Either pant or jacket, but we have tonals that just reads as a solid color that you can wear. And
Mm.
it's textured, it's puckered. So it's this, a navy blazer, has a certain look. Well, we make it, it's not necessarily a blazer, as we just call them a jacket. It's a little different, buttons are different, but it reads as navy. So it has a little more interest than throwing on just your typical navy jacket.
I tell you, there's so much history that goes into this. I mean, I know you mentioned, and I want to know before I ask you the next question, where can people buy this? What are you selling to stores? Are different department stores are doing this? How does that work?
Well, we've changed the way we've gone to consumer over the years. For years, I mean, ever since 1909 until essentially 2018, you could go through the retailers. And we sold to numerous retailers all across the country. That's how the company was started. That's how it remained for all those years. And we loved that method of, manufacturing to distribution into the retail stores. But there was one link, there was one piece that I was always missing, and that was having that direct to consumer contact. And I didn't want to step on the toes of the retailers. I didn't want to compete with our retailers. That was very important. I mean, for years, ever since we relaunched the brand in the mid 90s, and I can get to that if you're interested, when my grandparents sold it in 77, we bought it back, and then we relaunched it in the 90s. But I didn't want to compete with our retailers. But after a while, the retailers became fewer and fewer, and we wanted to be able to connect our consumers with the retailer. Well, this red and white jacket can be purchased at this store, in this city. And that became harder and harder. So we just went cold turkey. And in the spring of 2018, which is obviously before COVID, and, again, going back to that time, it was the right decision at the right time. We just didn't know it yet. And it was the right thing to do. And we went direct to consumer, and our business grew, and it was the right thing for us. And we're still able to service a retailer if they needed clothing for one of their customers. Well, now fast forward, with some of the way we've changed our manufacturing and such, we've been able to go back into the retail model, but we still sell the majority of our business is through Haspel.com. That's where you can find anything and everything you ever wanted. And it's very easy. We have a great, easy website to navigate through. But now, starting this spring, we're back in several retailers across the country, and we do in-stock program. In-stock is really more of a industry, a trade term, but a consumer can go into a men's store, say, I would like this jacket. If they don't carry it, they can call Haspel. We can get it to them, ship it out the same day. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for the consumers to get our clothing, which again is available 12 months out of the year. Of course, some of it can be seasonal, but here we go again with, you've got weddings that occur 12 months out of the year. You've got December and January destination weddings. So we do a lot of that business. So Seersucker is not something that's just, purchased in March, April, May, June. I mean, we sell it, and we can ship pretty much anywhere all year long.
So how does it work when, for example, I bought something online for a film festival, and the sleeves were too long. It wasn't custom made. So how do you do that when you sell it online?
You have to go to your local tailor, go to a local place, and get it fixed. I mean, we don't do custom. We can do a version of made to measure, meaning if you are not a straight 46 regular or a 48 long, and we can have and we don't have something available, you can special order it, really, for just a small upcharge. We can still have it in 4 to 6 weeks, have it made for you at the factory, and obviously ship directly to you. So all of those things can be done, but it's not meant as a made to measure or a custom suit shop, or even just for the shirts. If a shirt sleeve is too long, just buy it. It's affordable, and just take it somewhere down the street and get it fixed. But that seems to have worked for us, and that's okay.
Right. Well, it's like I'm thinking to myself, how does she juggle all this? That's a lot of juggling. So you obviously have a team for the clothing line that's doing the day by day. And how often do they check in with you when you are doing this?
Oh, every day. So they're here.
Every
So
day.
our headquarters, I told you we have a few family businesses. We have a headquarters building here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And when I had an office, or a showroom in New York, rather, a showroom for, gosh, 25 years. But when I moved everything in-house in 2018, when we relaunched with our own team, moved everybody to Baton Rouge. So
Hmm.
everyone is here. They're up on the second floor, and I see them every day. And it's great to have your team here. And they don't need me every single day, and I don't need them every single day. I know everybody here is working on their own, but it's nice to be here when we collaborate, and we have weekly meetings and conference calls. Matter of fact, I was just texting um, one of my team members. I'm like, I need help with this post today. So my marketing team is excellent. So, a marketing team, I've got merchandising and administrative staff, but everyone is here.
It's funny. I had no idea. I had no idea any of this was in the story of this conversation. I remember seeing some of it, but I wasn't paying attention to the details that you're talking about. That's a lot. That's a lot to go, and I don't want to take the entire time talking about that. How do you juggle? Okay, so then there's this. Uh, well, there's the way you're running the business, which is you see them every day. You are in touch with them. How do you juggle the other business alongside this business?
Well, they do different things. The sizes of the businesses are different, and as importantly, or more importantly, the size of the teams, are different. We have a lot of people here in this building. Most of them work for the sporting goods side of the business. And as in any family-run business, you have an administrative team who really works for any and all of the businesses. One day they're marketing and advertising, firearms. The next day it's a suit. The next day is help me with my new wine label. The next day is help
Mm.
us with the hunting camp. The next day, it's something else for LSU. So they have to be nimble, and we've got a good team here who can juggle all of that. They're even better jugglers than I am. But I have to spend time on each and every business every day. And I'll even ask myself the question before you ask it, because people always ask me, well, which one is your favorite? Which one do you spend more time on? I'm like, well, that's like asking, well, which child is your favorite? I was like, well, it depends on the day.
Yeah.
Today's Monday. So today, you have to be in touch with both businesses at all times during the day when you're here at the office, at night when you're home. You can never turn your phone off or unplug. It's just not possible
Interesting.
when you're in a family business. And when you have, or when you feel that responsibility, for over 200 people who are in your aura. And I feel personally responsible for every person who walks, in the door here every day. It's a lot to keep up with, but like I said, over these past, 30 some odd years, I've been able to relinquish some of these day-to-day operational, or a lot of these day-to-day operational duties to the team, that's in it every single day. And again, that allows me, to do what I need to do and to travel and to be out of the office and to take time for some of these other, I'll call them extracurricular or community or charitable things that I work on.
So, what is the name of the sporting goods, and are you in stores or are you also selling that online?
That is called Lipsey's, and it's a wholesale business, wholesale distribution of firearms. It started in 19, well, the retail store, which is no longer in existence, started in 1943, and the wholesale business started in 1953. My grandfather, Joseph Lipsey Sr., really started in the retail sporting goods business back in 1943 here in Baton Rouge. We grew to having 4 locations over Louisiana. But my father really became involved in that business while he grew up in it. It wasn't until he got out of the Army. Dad was an aide for JFK, and that's a whole nother story. I can go into the JFK story and the book we're writing and all of that too.
Love to hear it. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but he worked in that business starting in 1964, which is right after JFK was assassinated. So he went to work with his father, and grew that business. But it wasn't until 77 when he really became interested in the wholesale business. So we were doing both in tandem. So during our years when we first started and that was certainly before I was out of high school and college, was wholesale and distribution as well as retail of everything from firearms to fishing to camping to athletic wear to ski wear to footwear. We were the owners of the Converse brand in the 70s and 80s. So footwear was a big part of our lives for a very long time, up until we sold Converse in, I believe it was 1989. So we've
Wow.
been kind of all over the place with sporting goods all these years. And then over time, we've really just narrowed it down to just the wholesale firearms business. So we sell to, 18,000 federally licensed retailers across the country. We're a distributor, not a manufacturer.
That is amazing, Laurie. So, hey, you and I could talk for 5 hours here, but okay, let's not do that. So there is this balance act that has to be going on here. Obviously, you have a family, you're running these businesses. Um, for people who are wondering, right? Okay, how is she doing? How's she doing this? Do you have to adapt? Is there a touch of resilience that's in there? Um, how do you get inspired? What inspires you? This could become very mundane because it's on autopilot in a sense. So how do you deal with that personally?
And it is a juggling act for sure. And I like your theme and your focus on inspiration because you do have to find it, especially in working with, these family businesses for so long. Number one, to keep in interest is you've got to be able to change into so that things don't become so mundane, not just for you, but for your team. And you have to grow because if you aren't growing, that means you're not changing, and then it does get boring. So it is a bit of a juggling act, and I've been good at prioritizing and good at finding ways to change. I've never been great at juggling and you're great at trying to find that balance between either A, both of the businesses or just, personal and professional life. That is a very, very hard thing to perfect and to be good at every day. And I'm not good at it every day.
Mm.
And so sometimes you have to take a step back and, find, okay, Laurie, focus on those things that you are good at, find people in your professional life who do things better than you do. Find people who are smarter than you are. I mean, for me, that's easy. I got lots of them, but they all have different skill sets and different expertise. So when you have those people and you allow those people to really do what they do best, then you come together as a good team. So that takes care of the professional side of business. But the inspiration comes truly, it's from my team. And it sounds, oh, kind of boring. Of course, you're going to say that, but it really is true. I mean, they're very, I have really wonderful people on both sides of the business that I work with, and I lean on them to come to me with ideas. I'm not always just busting at the seams with ideas, and they get really mad when I do because I'll come up with great ideas for something. I was like, okay, y'all do it because I don't know if I can see this from beginning to end, scatterbrain here. It's hard. It's hard to execute for me from beginning to end on everything all the time. I just can't. I don't have that kind of bandwidth on time to do it. So having people who can spend time to do those things is really what makes it work.
It's I'm listening to you and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to ask her this question. If you were not who you are today, if you were not Lori, what other profession would you be doing?
Oh gosh, that is such a tough question. Well, I used to want to be a backup dancer, like backup dancer for Janet Jackson, but I think my days of that are over. So now I got to answer this question seriously, although that is a serious answer. Um, that's it is a good question. I did I always wanted to be in the entertainment business, not necessarily as an actress, but I was a dancer growing up and I always wish perhaps I'd pursued dancing in some form or fashion. I always loved it. But these days I can, you know, dabble in things like Broadway or things that can bring that kind of joy to me, in just my extracurricular life. I always loved the art world. While I did study art history as my minor in college, I took a big interest in art. And today that still sticks with me. Again, I don't know if I could have made a profession. Perhaps if I tried, I could have. There are a lot of things. I guess, I don't know, even at my age, I still wonder what am I gonna do when I grow up? I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think the mentality of of anyone, no matter where you're at in your lifespan, you don't feel, you still think like a kid. If you allow yourself to act like a kid is really what the importance here is, right? To be able
Right.
to give yourself the freedom to be that person and not care what other people think of that. And that's where acting comes in. So you mentioned Broadway. How did you get involved in Broadway? What inspired you to get into that aspect of the arts?
Well, I've always loved Broadway. I mean, I remember my first trip to New York when I was 10 years old. We made it a family tradition. My mother did it. I did it. I've taken my girls, when they were 10 and they're in their 20s now. But always loved Broadway and love going to shows. And I love, and I was asked by a producer one time, do you like the serious, the Broadway and the theatrical and the plays, or do you like the musicals? Do you like the, and I was like, well, I do love both. I do love this. I love the jazz hands and I love people who break out into song and dance. I mean, God, I love that so much. But I had an opportunity through a friend in the past couple of years, just to invest in Broadway. I don't know if it was a smart investment or not, and I really didn't care. But it was something that I wanted to do with people who I trusted. And so I've recently got involved in both Cabaret when it came back to Broadway last year, and then just recently Gypsy. And so I've
Nice.
enjoyed that. And
Who's in Gypsy right now? Who's in
Audra
Gypsy?
McDonald.
Oh, that's right.
So she opened with it a couple months ago, and actually I couldn't go to opening night because God, I don't even know where it was. Not important, but I couldn't go, and I was like, God. So anyway, I'm going this weekend.
Oh, boy, wonderful.
So I can't wait.
Wonderful. This is God, we're talking, is there any other business that we missed that you are dabbling in?
There is, I mean, nothing I'm going to bore you or your listeners with,
Sure, sure.
but one thing that has been fun, and it's not really a business, it's more of a hobby right now, but it could turn into a business if I could make more time for it, and that is the winemaking business.
Oh,
I've been a
interesting.
wino for a couple of decades, I guess. No, I love drinking. I love drinking wine, and my dad and his best friend started making their own barrels. I don't know, 15 years ago, and so about 5 years ago. Um, my dad and then his best friend's daughter, she and I are super close friends. We've been friends, we call it friends since the cradle because we really were. And we've always been super close. And we said, one of these days, someone's going to have to take over the wine business. And so we took our dads to lunch one day and we said, we are perfectly qualified take over the wine business. And so we've been doing it now for a couple of years. And now they always blend their own Cabernet out in Napa. And now they have their own row of grapes. And now we are doing our own Pinot Noir blending, which is a little bit more of my style and her style. And so we just came out with our new label. It's called Lola and Coco.
Nice.
And we're so excited. It's our first barrel. And I joke with my friends. I said when I got my first, it was bottled in August, and we got our shipments back in November. Our first Lola and Coco vintage. We were so excited, and I told my friends, I said if I like it, I'm going to give you a bottle, and if I don't like it, I'm going to give you a case. But it's been fun, and look,
Yeah.
just drinking wine. It's just been fun to do it. And after you make, I believe it's nine, they told us, after you make 9 barrels, which we've done our own barrel, but we've been helping them do theirs. So after you officially have your hands on 9 barrels of wine, you can become a winemaker. So, oh, here we go. One of my many business cards on my desk.
Bring it
Have
closer,
fun.
bring it closer.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
Lola.
there it is.
Oh,
Oh, wonderful. And this is in Louisiana or in Napa?
here. I mean, it's here. Actually, I'm Lola. Lola lives here. And Coco, my friend Colette, lives in Washington, D.C.
Gotcha.
But
Got-
we've collaborated and we're going in about 2 or 3 weeks. We're going back out to blend again for our second official barrel. We'll do ours. We'll also blend with our parents when they do their cab. So it's been fun. We love to drink wine, and now it's fun to make it. And
Absolutely.
we've got great winemakers, and it's fun.
I'm curious. I remember when we met at the film festival, and you were looking at that. What was your perspective on the industry at the time, and what is your perspective now on the industry?
Um, I I have enjoyed being involved. The entertainment industry is still very interesting to me. Tried to learn and accept where the risks
Yeah.
are, which in any business, it doesn't matter if it's the entertainment business. I mean, businesses I'm in, there's risk in everything. And hopefully this book that I'm trying to finish with my dad will become a screenplay. It's something that
So, what
um,
is this book? What's the story about this book, and what's it called?
I can't tell you the name yet
Okay.
because we haven't officially decided on what we only have a working title. So we have two or
Okay.
three names that we're working on, but it's really about my father and his life of success. He's been an extremely successful businessman. He's worked hard his whole life and just done so many things. He started so many businesses and been successful in so many businesses and investments and such over the years. But it's him telling his stories and his charity and community involvement. But there is a slice of time for a couple of years, of course, in the 60s, when he went to work for JFK in the White House. And there's a whole story, of course, a chapter is throughout several chapters in the book, but I'll just get to the point of what I'm trying to say is that my dad became very close with the president. And my dad's job after the assassination, my dad was still in Washington, D.C. Obviously, the president was assassinated in Dallas. And my dad's job from the moment the body landed at Andrews Air Force Base, his job was to watch the body from that moment until he was buried. So my
Wow.
dad never left his side, which includes the autopsy. And my dad is the only person on the planet, other than the two medical staff that was in the room, who witnessed the entire autopsy.
Wow.
And so there's obviously he's told the story in bits and pieces. He was sworn to I'm not going to say this right, it's the National Secrecy Act or something that rhymes with that for 15 years. And 15 years to the day, two men came knocking on his door saying, "Are you Richard Lipsey? Um, we need to talk to you. This is the department we're from." And so from then, it just kind of skyrocketed after that. But I told Dad, my dad's 85 years old. And I said, "Dad, we need to get everything that's in your head on paper." And so we've been working on this for about a year and a half, just kind of getting the oral history department at LSU to interview my dad. And that took about 8 months of interviewing. We have everything transcribed. And now we have been working on his book, with the help of a wonderful writer, collaborating with him. So we're getting close to the final document and then it'll be published.
Awesome.
So
This is
that's what we're working on.
exciting.
But I've had the screenplay in my head for years, even before we got onto the book, but it took my dad 10 years to say yes to me to write the book. And so once I got over that hump, I'm like, okay, I want to ask you about the screenplay, but I needed this yes first. But now we can go to the screenplay. So
You can
if I
have you can
get
have
it
De
together,
Niro play him.
let's see.
Think about it. It's
I, I
different,
need
but
I need a few I need a few different ages for my dad. Of
yeah.
course. My dad was in his early 20s when he was that
Oh, I see.
24 when he worked for JFK.
Yeah. Yeah,
24,
this is what's your dad's ethnicity? What's your immigrant background?
kind of a funny story. Most of our family is from Poland and Russia,
Okay.
primarily Poland, some Russia. I, I have to laugh because we took a family trip to France about 2 summers ago, and we were riding through actually, we're riding through some small town and we were heading actually towards Cannes. Actually, Cannes and then Saint-Tropez, and then we went on to Cannes. Not important, but we're riding through some small town in France. And my mother's like, we're looking out the window and we're in the car on the way from the airport. She goes, oh, look, that's where my grandmother so and so is. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, yeah, that's where so and so's from. I was like, we're French? I was like, what do you mean? We're also French. So I don't know.
Wow, that's
Got a few
what a,
different ones in us.
so this is amazing. So did his dad immigrate to the United States?
Yes.
Got it. So that's how the whole all went down.
Young, young,
Lori,
young.
you got a hell of a story. And yeah, and by the way, don't discount me as a screenwriter. I'm a pretty damn good screenwriter.
I'll just say that, because my dad was at the autopsy and, he said the Warren Commission was completely accurate. One shooter, dad has never known or been involved whatsoever in any story about any conspiracy theory. He personally doesn't think there was ever one. This is one,
Wow.
and he goes on to tell you why he thinks Lee Harvey Oswald was absolutely the lone shooter. And you never know. That's what gets people so excited is the conspiracy theory. That is the exact reason my dad has turned down national interviews for years. He hasn't gone on national television, done any other big interviews because he doesn't want people to confuse him with, and I'm sorry for using this term, but I'm going to, the wackos out there who believe there are all these conspiracy theories. You can believe whatever you want to believe. But he's like, no, I was there. This is, I saw, he wasn't in Dallas, but he was in Washington, and all the evidence points to one lone shooter. So that's what he
Interesting.
believes. His story's never going to change, right?
Right, right.
But that's why he hasn't really gone public with anything, until now. And now the book isn't necessarily, it has nothing to do with conspiracy. And really, the book isn't even about JFK. The book is about my dad and his life and his perspective, much like your deputy friend. It's about him. The book and then the screenplay will be about him and how that experience changed, his perspective on life and how, he's had influence on other people. And so that's really what it's about. But you do get to read about his experience there. And it just, he had so much respect, not only for the president, but primarily his relationship with the General Philip Wheel, who was the commanding general for the military district in Washington. That's who my dad worked for. And the two of them worked under JFK, for a couple of years. And so that was his perspective, was dad's relationship with, with them.
Amazing. It's such a wonderful story. Lori, it's been a fascinating conversation. Very inspired to hear all the things you've done. You've done so much, multiple lifetimes over and over. So I want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
I just appreciate the opportunity to be here. I really, really do. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.